All right. Now, speaking of being inclusive, I want to welcome our guest today. We have a product on for our product deep dive section. We have a very exciting guest. Full disclosure, we know this person very well because we are working on the same project. The project being called Open Forest Protocol. It's I think, kind of the only climate tech solution protocol that's going on Near at the moment, and it's right for and it's at its early stages, and you've probably heard about it, that it's launching, the kind of idea behind it, but you haven't really heard about it from the product side. So we're really excited to invite Luke Schubert, the product development lead from Open Forest Protocol today, to talk a little bit about, maybe have some sneak peeks about how product development is going on Open Forest OFP. So Luke, are we able to see Luke on the stream?
I feel him, that's for sure. Oh, here he is.
There we are.
Welcome, Luke.
Thank you so much, Rem and Joe. It is wonderful to see you both. It's been so long. How are the kids? Everything going good? Yeah, good. Awesome.
Yeah, doing well. Also, I wanted to express that this is not a conflict of interest, it's an alignment of interest.
Well, I must say, I'm so truly honored to be on Rise and Grind. I mean, this is an institution in the Near ecosystem, and it's you both are just powerhouses. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, we can do a little autograph session after the show if you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there'll be NFTs, so no problem.
And we can sign your titties.
Yeah.
Can we request, because you're a Rise and Grind, can you tell our viewers that you are ready to rise and grind today?
Every single day I rise and grind, but today, of all days, I woke up and my alarm said rise and grind. But the real thing, because I'm on fucking Rise and Grind right here, baby. We're going. We're rising and grinding.
We're rising and grinding. Okay, love the energy.
We're here for it.
To set the tone, please introduce yourself. Please introduce yourself, your role, and maybe this is kind of a challenge, but something necessary. Could you describe OFP in one sentence?
Totally. So my name is Luke Schubert. I am the product development lead for the Open Forest Protocol, and the Open Forest Protocol is creating a platform and a community for the measurement, reporting, and verification of forest data.
Succinct. I dig it.
All right. So maybe we could ask, what is really the idea behind OFP? Maybe is there an origin story, and what is its mission? Like, what does it mean to do MRV for forest data, and why does it matter, right?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the origin of OFP is pretty badass. OFP is basically what you get whenever climate people started talking with crypto people and we're like, how can we apply blockchain to like forest monitoring? Because the people that are in the climate side, our CEO and CTO, you can check them out on the website, Fred and Arlene, they were co-founders of a reforestation organization, and they were working with people who were in the reforestation industry. And so they were on the ground knowing and learning about what these issues are that these projects were coming up with. People want to get out there, they want to plant trees, but they need money to do that. In order to get money, they typically have to prove that they're actually doing the work on the ground. And that's where the monitoring aspect and the reporting aspect is a bit challenged there. So really they set out and they said, okay, well, we know blockchain is a use case. It's like a lot of the crypto world right now. There's tons of use cases, but no one's actually built it out fully. And so we're doing it. We got a bunch of people from the crypto side on to start building out the mechanism, me included. And yeah, so we've basically been trying to align, trying to basically fully realize the application of blockchain towards forest monitoring.
Nice. Would you say, maybe to describe the mission of OFP, what's kind of the small immediate goal, and then what is, I bet you have a huge mission because it's obviously related to climate change. So maybe you could do it in the more immediate mission and the more ambitious vision for OFP.
Absolutely. So the context of this is we have forest projects, and planting trees is super important. You can go read the climate science. We can probably link some stuff here. Planting trees is really important. It's not the end all be all, disclaimer. We still need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions drastically. That's what's going on in COP26 right now. But generally, planting trees is a pretty cool thing to do. Not only is it what the cool kids are doing, but it's also something that'll be really awesome in the future. It'll create negative carbon sinks, help biodiversity problems, and also potentially protect native lands and engage local populations in this sort of work. So what our goal right now is to provide this platform right now. And what the platform does, though, is it helps us divert money that people might want to spend on ESG projects like planting trees to the local people and to people who are on the ground actually building these projects, planting trees, managing forests, preventing them from being cut down. So there's a system in place that does that. It's called the Voluntary Carbon Market. Voluntary Carbon Market is a big mess of a problem. It's completely disorganized. It's made up of 1,000 different actors. But primarily its goal is to drive investor funding, primarily from corporations that need to offset their carbon emissions, to projects that can produce essentially a quantifiable reduction in greenhouse gases, in carbon. So planting trees, you take carbon out of the atmosphere and store it in that thick, woody biomass that's in the trees. So you really want to protect those trees long term. Voluntary Carbon Market's trying to do that, trying to drive funding, but there's a lot of problems with it. So our long-term vision is to address many of the problems that are in the voluntary carbon market, driving those funds to the projects, and then expand beyond forests. We want to be able to apply this technology that we think is really, really powerful and really disruptive and extremely undeveloped at this point. No one has anything like we do, and we want to be able to derive that and put that into other applications. We think we can. There's peatlands that are really important, that have not only just bog bodies, but also shit tons of carbon. I mean, a peatland, peat is like a type of moss, like wetlands. They can store like 5 times as much carbon as forests. If you plant trees on a wetland, on a peat wetland, you are removing carbon. You're losing carbon basically. So yeah, there's lots of other applications that we can push this for, but we're starting with forests right now, making it work for the projects that we're using, and then hopefully expanding this to other use cases.
Great, that's really bullish, as we like to say. I have one. So I think what you kind of hit on right there is the ability for OFP to kind of. Welcome, Ozzy. Thanks for joining us. So the ability for OFP to kind of. And goodbye, Ozzy. Measure environmental data in such a way that you can kind of account for the value. You can account for these things like externalities and things that have traditionally kind of been outside of the economic framework. Can you talk a little bit about how that works? Like, how do you actually validate this data, and how would that be? Like, if you're extending it to peatlands, what is it that you're actually extending? What does that framework look like?
Yeah, it's a great question, Joe, and it's a great segue into the product side, which is I know what you want me to talk about. So what we're building concretely, and I'll discuss the products, and then I'll get into your question. What we're building concretely is a series of products that all are interconnected, and what this provides is a closed loop system where everything that occurs within OFP is essentially visible and published on chain. So we have a really cool way of keeping track of projects. Every time a project, let's say you own a forest project, Joe, and you want to come onto OFP, what you would do is you'd access our dashboard, which is one of our projects, and you would create an account. This account, when creating an account, involves you essentially minting an NFT. And within the NFT is all the metadata about your project. So how big is it? What are the geographic coordinates? What's your funding, if you want to include that information, and additional documentation. We hash that, we put it on IPFS. But you get access to an NFT that's managed by your account. And through that NFT, you use that to access the dashboard. And through that NFT, you're able to monitor your project and attach monitoring data to that NFT. So that NFT is constantly updated over time with the information of your project. It's a really, really cool system. I don't think we've seen any NFTs. We don't think we've seen any use cases that use NFTs in this way.
Right.
And so it's a very, what it does is it enables us to have a blockchain interoperable asset, i.e. the project, that exists for the entire lifetime that the trees are around. So if we disappear, that data is still out there. People can still track and use that data for various purposes, and that projects can still rely on that data even if we disappear. So in order to accomplish that, though, we have our dashboard for the projects. We have a mobile app that connects to the dashboard. So the projects can kind of use that mobile app to take pictures in the field. It's geolocation and timestamp metadata is attached to those photos and sent to the dashboard. And then all of that data, the projects can manage, the person in charge of the projects, they can curate that data, and then they send it to what we call the validation oracle. So we essentially have a validation network of lots of different types of validators. And what these validators are different types of organizations. They can be nonprofit organizations focused on environmental stuff. They can be satellite providers. They can even be local governments in the region that are all around the world. And so what these validators do is they look at this data that you are proposing, and they look at all of the stuff that you've linked and all the pictures you've taken through the app and all of the satellite imagery maybe that you've attached, and they're able to assess whether or not the pictures and whether or not your data upload, your claim to what's going down on the ground is legit. So in terms of creating this process for monitoring forests and validating that, involves really those three main products: the project operator dashboard for the forest projects, the mobile app that helps facilitate the collection and reporting of that data, and then the validator dashboard, where validators come in and they look at this data and then they evaluate it and are able to put all those decisions on chain.
So
does that answer your question?
Luke, I want to ask a bit of a kind of a big question because it's two-parted. So what I get from your two answers is that the current, first of all, the voluntary carbon market, but also the forestation, forest-based climate solutions that are contributing to the voluntary carbon market have certain inefficiencies. There are some challenges in this field, and blockchain, as you explain it, because of its immutability, its transparency, security, they give a lot of solutions to these age-old problems. So that makes sense for what OFP is trying to do. So on the one hand, I want to ask, what exactly could you explain a little bit more about the actual challenges facing the forestation sector that OFP is trying to solve? Also on the carbon side, if you can briefly touch upon it. And then it kind of gets to my second question, which is, I think, when you hear it from the outside about OFP, that we're trying to solve these problems, people ask, well, is it scientific enough? Aren't there, usually these carbon credits, they come from countries that certify it, they follow certain rules. How is it that this kind of new technology can fit or meet with these existing regulations and whatnot? So if you could first address, the actual challenges that are facing the current market and the current forestation sector, and then also how OFP, as it solves it, would kind of meet to these existing regulations or scientific rigor of existing carbon standards.
100%. It's a very important question, and I want to clarify that really just emphasize. I don't think I said anything to the contrary, but emphasize that what we're doing is not coming in and saying we can do things better. It's in part that. The existing industry has been developed by extremely well-meaning and very intelligent people, but for whatever reason, it's just gotten completely out of hand. So there's instances, if you look on any free panel for COP26, there's lots of talks going around about the current carbon market and some of the problems with it. We don't need to get too much into it, but just one example is, let's say a project, a forest project, Joe's forest project, creates some carbon credits, which is a representation of 1 ton of CO2 that's been taken out of the atmosphere and stored in trees. This is a common means of financing projects where, let's say I'm a big bad corporation or something, and I want to offset my carbon emissions because I fly people all around the world and have lights on. I want to buy some of Joe's carbon credits because that's going to make me look better. It's also going to make me potentially meet certain government regulations. Like I have to have certain low emissions or whatever. So what happens in this industry is, let's say Joe sells that carbon credit. He can sell that to a broker for, let's say, $10 a ton, $10 a carbon credit. So okay price. Then that broker goes around and sells it to you, Ren, for $20. And then you go to sell it to me for $30. So there's a significant part of this value chain that's not going to Joe's project, even though he's the one that created this product. Right. So just as an example of kind of how messed up this system can be right now. So what we're hoping to do is address, 2 to 3 main issues with it. One thing is something that a lot of people are talking about now with regards to the voluntary carbon market, and that is transparency. Mm-hmm. Having transparency in where the carbon is originating and where the carbon is going is absolutely critical. And so we are addressing that through a few ways. One, we're using blockchain technology, which is a great way for exhibiting transparency if you use it correctly. So we are using it to display all of the transactions and all of the interactions that occur on chain. And to be clear, we're not necessarily providing carbon products, but if we were, we would be able to record the origination of all of those carbon products on chain and show the transfer of that value all around. But suffice to say, in the carbon industry, the validation is also a problem on the ground. In terms of transparency, there's lots of instances where carbon has been inaccurately estimated, and so they create more carbon credits than they were actually supposed to. So that's another problem that will be, all of our data will be publicly available. All the decisions that go into evaluating that will be publicly available. So that's an example of something. Another big problem that we're trying to address is accessibility. So a lot of the voluntary carbon market is oriented towards large organizations, large projects. Projects with hundreds of thousands of hectares of land, which is tens of thousands of square kilometers. It's massive projects of massive land are really the only people that can get these main certifiers. There's big players in the carbon industry right now, and so it's accessibility is a big problem, and we're also trying to address that for the smaller projects to help provide the smaller projects with those monitoring and reporting tools. And that kind of ties back to our roots. Some of our co-founders, they started out working with those smaller projects. So they have those people in mind whenever they're thinking about creating this sort of a system. So, and then as regards to fitting into current regulations, what we're just trying to do is make this process easier. We're just trying to help people monitor their forests. So if we were to delve into the carbon industry, and we were to provide a carbon product, what we would need to do is match the certain industry standards. If you look at the Task Force for Scaling Voluntary Carbon Markets, it has a great acronym. They provide lots of really great clarity. They recognize that there's lots of different carbon standards out there, not necessarily for forests, it could be for other stuff, but there's lots of carbon standards out there, and they're all trying to do different things, and they're all providing different sort of evaluative criteria. Some of it is very similar, but some of them are different. And so they provide, guiding principles for that. So if we were to provide a carbon standard, we would want to meet those guiding principles to show the world, hey, we are open. We're not only transparent, radically transparent and radically accessible for this, but also we're meeting the most scientifically rigorous principles that we can, while also making this an accessible and scalable tool. That's one of the biggest problems is, we need to plant trees. We need to funnel funding towards people who want to plant and maintain forests. We need to make it so that it's more financially opportunistic for people to grow and manage a forest than it is to cut it down and raise cattle or plant crops. Not that there's anything wrong with people making a living, right? That's absolutely, I have absolutely no place to judge the actions of people in other countries. But, generally though, there is an existing problem where it's more economically feasible to cut down the trees and to use it for other purposes. Of course. So we want to be able to drive financing to make it the other way. So people can still have the same amount of jobs, still get the same, if not more money from just protecting and planting trees. So ultimately what we want to help accomplish.
Thank you so much for that answer. And I think your last point really drives home the kind of necessity that propels OFP. It's not just about, carbon markets. They're going to have however many $1 billion evaluation, and we want to capture it. I'm sure it's also that, but it's also when you don't actively make replanting forests and conserving forests profitable, then it necessarily goes the other way around. People are going to deforest things because that's going to be more profitable than conserving it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's exciting stuff. So any other questions about the product stuff? I see someone posted, I shared a photo of my pet. Are you planting a tree? Very insightful.
Are you?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It'll be a bonsai tree though, because it's not,
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to kind of point out that this doesn't sound like, I don't know if this was the joke there, but it's like a lot of times there's like, you do some kind of little gimmicky thing and somebody plants a tree, in response to that. But this is, the idea of providing sorry, I saw the NFTs, providing a economic incentive for restoration. Like that's totally groundbreaking. I think that's really awesome. So when NFTs, I think that's actually a question that you could answer. Like when will the first NFTs be going live on the platform?
Yeah, well, so I just want to clarify something. What we're trying to do, and what a lot of projects, we can get into, kind of some of the other projects in this space, which are really cool, and a lot of great teams working on really great stuff. But one of the main things that we've seen, and it was an intentional design approach, is we're not creating NFTs of actual trees. There's processes out there, no shade on them, but what we're trying to address is the more like the real problem of climate change, right? We need to plant. There are approximately 8 to 900 million hectares of land. 1,000 or million, it's a big difference, but there's a lot of land out there in the world that we can plant trees on. It's 900 million hectares of land that are available to plant trees on right now. And on top of that, we need to plant approximately 1 trillion trees. That's an estimate that's thrown out there. The science is, of course, there's some complication with that figure. Often it's thrown out as a solve all problem. We of course need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but suffice to say, the world would be better off for both climate change as well as biodiversity crises and other things if we planted more trees. And by having an NFT for each individual tree, it's not the most scalable solution. So our NFTs are for projects. It's a land area that has many trees within it, but it's in essence, it's the project is an NFT rather than individual trees. So in this way, we think it's a more scalable solution than some of the other platforms that might be tokenizing individual trees. But yeah, we can get into other projects. I don't know how much more time we got, but up to y'all.
I wanted to just kind of follow up on that one. What are the big kind of roadmap goals for OFP? What are the next big milestones, and what are you most excited about?
Yes.
Yeah, great question.
On the product side.
Yeah, of course. So we just 2 weeks ago launched our beta. So our beta version is out there, our V1, our MVP, minimum viable product. So it's out there, and we have projects testing on it right now. So we are conducting our beta testing right now. We know that there's some things that we want to change about the system. This has been a long development process. We've been designing this and developing it since last year. So we're starting to hit that point where we have this product that we put a lot of love and blood, sweat, and tears into, and we're introducing it to potential clients, and they're saying, this might not necessarily be useful. Or we're looking at this, and as we learn more about the contemporary carbon market, we're realizing, and just the forest industry, we're realizing, actually, maybe we should change this up a little bit. So it's a really fascinating process that we're in right now. But looking forward, we're shooting for a mainnet launch in Q2 of 2022. So 6 to 8 months, we'll be live. We'll be on near protocol. We will be, helping forest projects monitor their data and putting that shit on chain. So it's really exciting. We're moving fast. But yeah, right now we're in beta testing, moving towards mainnet launch.
All right. Thank you, Luke, so much. We're running out of time. Real quick, is there anything you want to plug? How do people get involved in OFP? Can they reach out to you if I'm a forest operator, or maybe I'm interested in validation? How is there a way to get involved in the OFP community?
Yeah, we have an amazing community team. So it's going to be really easy for you to get into touch with them. One way is to hit up our Discord. I will link the Discord information in the chat, but I'm sure I'll send it to Rin and Joe to say after this, because but yeah, our Discord's one place. We also have a Telegram chat. And in worst case scenario, just go to our website, openforestprotocol.org. There you can find all of our socials, Insta, Twitter, LinkedIn. So we're basically all over the place. But yeah, if you want to have a discussion, hit us up on any of those channels. If you want to become a little bit more involved, if you have like a forest project out there, or you're interested in supporting us in other ways, you can check out the website as well. We have an intake form there for you to check out. So yeah, hit us up.
All right. Thank you so much, Luke. I think we got to have you back some other time to go in even further about the product.
Happy to.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's rise and grind. Let's keep on rising and grinding.
Keep on rising and grind. Don't forget to rise and grind. Thank you so much, Luke. And we'll see you another time.